Welcome back, friends. Tonight we drift into the misty shrouds of time, to a world of clashing steel, whispered oaths, and lacquered armour gleaming under the rising sun. The air smells of pine smoke and polished iron. Somewhere nearby, a bamboo wind chime tinkles softly, eerily calm for a place where honour is currency, and death comes as swiftly as the nod of a head. You wake up lying on a tatami mat. A low ceiling looms above you, wooden beams darkened by centuries of smoke. The walls are made of delicate rice paper and you're cold, like mountain in November cold. There's no insulation, no Wi-Fi, no memory foam, just the sharp ache of bones not yet adjusted to futon life. You shift slightly and a floorboard creaks. Outside someone coughs. You freeze. Welcome to feudal Japan, and I hate to break it to you but you're already blowing it. You roll up, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and realise you're wearing a threadbare yukata that smells like cedar and responsibility. Your first thought is coffee. Bad news, no beans, no barista, no oat milk. You will be sipping barley tea, lukewarm if you're lucky. Also, the fact that you sat up before being summoned. That alone might be taken as disrespectful depending on who walks in next. Samurai etiquette is serious business, so before you get too comfortable, hit like and subscribe. But only if I've earned it. No pressure, no hard feelings. And hey, while you're here, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. Now, go ahead and dim the lights, maybe curl up with a blanket, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The door slides open with a dry rasp. A man enters, his silhouette outlined in pale morning light. He's older, calm and precise, like someone who irons his soul. Without a word, he bows deeply. You hesitate. Bow back. How low? How long? Is there a manual? There is, actually. Several. And you didn't read any of them. See, in the samurai class, bowing is more than a greeting. It's a declaration of where you stand in the invisible hierarchy, a quiet negotiation of power and humility. Too shallow, and you're rude. Too deep, and you might look desperate. And if you hold it too long, now you're just weird. He straightens up, says something in clipped formal Japanese and turns to leave. You understand none of it, but you nod. Another mistake. Nodding casually is Western behaviour. Here, it might make you seem dismissive. You follow him barefoot down a narrow corridor, your feet whispering on the woven mats. Everything smells faintly of incense and rain-damp wood. Outside, crows caw over a garden so neatly raked, it feels like you're disturbing its peace just by existing. You step outside and are immediately hit with the smell of charcoal and miso soup. Men are training already, sweating, shouting, slashing the air with wooden bokken. Their movements are fluid and brutal like water that cuts. One glances your way. He's your age but moves like someone with an actual spine. His look says, you don't belong here, and honestly, he's not wrong. Now here's your first real challenge. You're not allowed to speak unless spoken to, and even then, you'd better hope your Japanese is perfect, formal, and steeped in about 8 levels of cultural nuance. The samurai were fluent in 2 languages, courtly diplomacy and the quiet threat of violence. Historians still argue whether early samurai were truly noble warriors or glorified enforcers for whoever held the purse strings. Some say they were moral paragons, others just heavily armed middle management. Either way, you're in their world now. And you? You're underdressed, confused, and probably still smell like citrus body wash. The samurai code, Bushido, is a set of ethical ideals. Loyalty, courage, respect, and self-discipline. Sounds noble, right? Until you realise courage means sprinting towards someone trying to gut you. Respect means obeying without hesitation. Self-discipline? You just thought about scratching your nose. You've already failed. Back inside, breakfast is laid out on a small tray. Steamed rice, miso, pickled vegetables. You sit cross-legged and pick up your chopsticks. You hesitate again. How do you even begin? Pro tip: never stick them upright in your rice. That's done at funerals, as an offering to the dead, and congratulations, you just did it. A serving woman gasps audibly. Somewhere a ghost probably high-fives another. Tiny offences like this add up. You're not just an outsider, you're a walking etiquette hazard. They don't hate you, not yet, but you're already starting to smell foreign. In a society that values seamless social choreography, You're tripping on every beat. And here's the fringe tidbit for the day. Some samurai carried netsuki, little carved toggles attached to their sashes, often in the shape of mythical beasts or humorous scenes. While mostly functional, they were also a quiet flex, like showing off your designer wallet, if your wallet featured a raccoon dog wrestling a ghost. But don't get too charmed. That older man from earlier? He returns with a quiet frown and gestures you to follow. The day's just beginning, and already you're being summoned. Maybe to train, maybe to apologise, maybe to duel. Who can say? Because that's life under the code. Structured, sacred, and sharp as a drawn blade. There's no room for guessing. No room for late risers, flippant nods, or ghosts in your rice. You step into your sandals awkwardly, backward of course, which is another mistake, and follow him across the gravel path. Tiny stones bite your feet. The wind sighs through the bamboo. You're already behind, and the day hasn't even started. You shuffle after the stern-faced samurai, gravel crunching softly under your sandals. The sun is barely above the treetops, casting long gold-tinged shadows across the compound. A rooster crows in the distance, but that's not your wake-up call. No, your alarm clock is discipline, merciless, ancient, and entirely unimpressed with how well rested you are. You're led to a small wooden annex near the training courtyard. Steam curls from a narrow slit in the door. You step inside and are immediately swallowed by warm, humid air and the earthy scent of cedar. Bath time, but not the luxurious bubble-soaked kind. This is ritual bathing, cleansing the body to prepare the mind. You're expected to be clean before training, not after. Dirt is dishonour, sweat is inevitable, filth is optional. A squat, no-nonsense man gestures to the wooden tub. You begin removing your yukata and freeze. You're being watched, scrutinised really. Every move is being measured for shame potential. You flinch as you lower yourself into the scalding water, trying not to yelp. You fail. He frowns. You sit there, awkward and flushed, while he instructs you with gestures and a few sharp phrases. You manage to wash. Correctly? Doubtful. At least you didn't splash, which might be the one thing you got right. And here's your first true test of humility. Brushing your teeth with a twig. Chew the end, fray the fibres, scrub gently. It tastes like tree, because it is a tree. It's also expected. You're not here to impress anyone with minty freshness. You're here to prove you can adapt. Once you're towelled off, scratchy, thin linen in case you're wondering, you're handed fresh clothes. A kimono and hakama, both folded with geometric precision. You're meant to don them with reverence. Each tie, each crease, tells others whether you're disciplined or a disgrace. It takes you 3 tries to tie the hakama correctly. By then your fingers are sweaty, and the older samurai from before is visibly fighting the urge to help. Or throttle. Hard to tell. The art of bowing comes next. You think it's just a polite nod? Oh friend, bowing is its own language. Not just how deep, but how long, when, and even where you bow changes the entire conversation. You're shown the 15-degree bow, eshaku, the 30-degree bow, keirei, and the terrifying 45-degree bow, sakeirei. The equivalent of sending a handwritten apology with flowers, kneeling, and offering your best tea set. They demonstrate. You mimic. Poorly. At one point, you bow too fast and too low to someone of the lower status. Social disaster. You just accidentally offered your undying respect to the guy who scrubs the dojo floors, which, by the way, might soon be your job if this keeps up. The instructor stares. You stare. He stares harder. You bow again out of panic. Wrong. Now you're grovelling. Historians still argue whether samurai etiquette was truly enforced among all ranks, or if commoners were simply expected to guess and obey. But if this morning is anything to go by, guessing gets you nowhere, and obedience gets you barely tolerated. You're ushered to the shrine next, a small exquisite corner of the estate with manicured pebbles, wind bells, and a tiny wooden gate. Here, you're expected to light incense, clap your hands once or twice, bow at the correct angle, and not sneeze into the incense smoke like you just did. Congratulations, you've now insulted the ancestors and triggered a sinus chain reaction. The nearby retainer clears his throat. You don't speak the language, but the vibe is clear. please stop existing incorrectly. And here's your quirky tidbit of the day. Samurai sometimes carried tooth blackening powder. Yes, they dyed their teeth black. It was a beauty standard, a mark of adulthood, and a visible sign of dignity. The process is called uhaguro, and though mostly practiced by noblewomen, some male courtiers and samurai followed suit. You? You're just trying not to choke on cedar steam and soap. A bell chimes. Breakfast again. This time you're expected to sit with others. You step into the room and it's a quiet minefield of possible disrespect. Floor seating. Don't stretch your legs toward anyone. Don't pour your own tea first. Don't eat before the elder speaks. You get the order wrong and lift your rice bowl with both hands before the blessing ends. Every head turns. One of the younger men chuckles softly, then stifles it. You think he's laughing with you. He's not. The meal is mostly silent. The clink of dishes, the occasional murmur. You're sweating more now than you did in the bath. At one point you attempt conversation and ask someone a question, with your mouth still full. Let me just say, you might as well have stood up and juggled the teacups. You remember that bowing disaster earlier? Turns out it keeps happening, because this culture isn't just about rules. It's about understanding why the rules matter. You're not just following orders, you're embodying values, dignity, order, ritual. You're not just living beside others, you're participating in a dance that's been choreographed for centuries. Your body's tired, your spirit's bruised, and it's not even mid-morning. You're escorted back to your room, told to rest before training. As you kneel by the window, looking out at a courtyard raked into perfect spirals, you think about the sheer weight of existing here, the pressure to do everything right every minute of the day. And just as you finally exhale, you notice the door still slightly ajar. You were supposed to close it behind you, silently, left hand only. Oops. You kneel in silence, dreading what comes next. The breeze whispers through the open shoji screen, rustling the edge of your hakama like it knows something you don't. Outside, the morning hums with discipline, muted footfalls, distant barked commands, and the faint whump of wooden swords colliding. A sharp knock at your door snaps you back to reality. It's time. You're led across the training yard, where rows of warriors glide through their drills like flowing water. Their movements are timed to an invisible rhythm, precise, deliberate, deadly. This isn't chaos. This is choreography, a performance, every day, with stakes higher than any stage. You're brought to a rack where armour awaits, not the kind you imagine from movies, all clunky and medieval. This is lamellar armour, rows of lacquered plates, tied with silk cords, designed to flex and move with the body. It gleams black and red in the sun, almost beautiful. Almost. Then you're told to put it on. Now, unless you've had previous experience suiting up in 30 pounds of overlapping plates while being judged by a man who hasn't blinked in 4 minutes, this is going to be a struggle. You fumble with the cords, tie the knots wrong. At one point you loop a breastplate around your back. He watches, arms folded. No help. This is part of your training. Finally, someone loses patience and steps forward to assist, but not without muttering something under their breath. You're pretty sure it wasn't. You're doing great. Here's the kicker. Armour isn't just protection. It's personality. The samurai expressed their family, their honour, and their readiness through what they wore. Some helmets even featured grotesque masks or fearsome animal motifs. Lions, dragons, even tengu. Those long-nosed mountain spirits. Quirky, sure, but also deeply symbolic. You're barely holding up your shoulder guards. Historians still argue whether samurai armour was more ceremonial than practical in later periods, especially as warfare changed and muskets entered the scene. But here, in this moment, it's a second skin, and you're sweating through it like it's a sauna suit on discount. Once your armour's finally on, albeit crookedly, you're handed a wooden sword, a bokken. It looks harmless, but the way the others wield theirs, sharp, fast and unhesitating, makes it clear this is not a toy. You take your place in a line of trainees and attempt to mimic the movements. You are not great. Swing, step, breathe, rotate. Again. You're corrected immediately. Your grip is wrong. Your stance is floppy. Your foot placement is an insult to geometry. The instructor walks past muttering "Mada Mada," which roughly translates to "not even close." But it's not just physical. Every movement must reflect mental clarity, intent. If your mind wanders, your form wobbles. If your ego shows, your swing stutters. They're not just training your muscles, they're grinding down everything soft and sloppy in your spirit. And here comes your quirky tidbit. Some samurai wore kusari fundo, small chains with weighted ends tucked discreetly in their robes. Think of it like a ninja's pocket flail. Not exactly standard issue, but popular among those who liked having backup, just in case a sword wasn't enough. Meanwhile, you're being pummeled in slow motion by your own incompetence. The instructor finally nods toward the real swords, laid out on a rack nearby. You freeze. Surely not yet. Surely there's more warm-up, more guidance. But no, he beckons. The katana is passed to you with reverence. You take it too quickly. Another minor breach. You're supposed to bow, receive it with both hands, and appreciate the gravity of holding a soul-bound weapon. A katana is not a tool. It's a lineage, a promise, a judgment waiting to be delivered. You draw it. Badly. There's a very specific way to unsheath a katana, involving your thumb, your hips, and the kind of awareness you can only acquire by not being you. You yank it out like it's a butter knife and immediately hear a hiss from nearby students. You're lucky you didn't slice your own knee. And here comes the moment of realization. This sword isn't just sharp. It's sacred. Forged over weeks, folded thousands of times. A symbol of purity. Mishandling it is like sneezing on a holy relic. You're instructed to perform a basic cut. Downward, smooth, with full commitment. You hesitate. Again, wrong. A real samurai doesn't hesitate. There is no half swing. There is only certainty or death. You swing. The form is there. Kind of. You don't drop it, at least. Progress? Then comes the paired sparring. Wooden swords again, thankfully, but this time you're up against someone who wants to test you. Not hurt you exactly, just rattle you. They circle like a hawk, waiting for your breath to catch, your eyes to dart, your knees to betray their panic. They strike. Fast. You flinch. Hard. You lose your grip and the bokken clatters to the ground. The courtyard falls silent for a breath. No laughter. Just pity. Maybe disappointment. That's the thing about samurai training. It's not just hard, it's humiliating. Intentionally so. You must shed your pride like old skin. To survive this code, you don't need to be good. You need to become. The process is relentless, unforgiving, and slow. You pick up your bokken and bow. Correctly this time. That's something. Your opponent nods. A small gesture, but it carries weight. The sun rises higher. Your body aches. Your knuckles sting. You feel like you've aged 10 years in 10 minutes. And then, just before you think you'll collapse, the instructor calls a break. You stagger to the shade, grateful. But don't sit. No one else is sitting. To show fatigue is to show weakness. So you stand, trembling, quiet, watching the others move like poetry carved in flesh and steel. You're still worlds away from belonging. But you survived the first session. Barely. You think a break means rest. It doesn't. It means a new opportunity to mess something up. You're still standing under the shade of a cypress when another instructor appears. This one younger, sharper-eyed, the kind who could probably slice an apple midair just by glaring at it. He doesn't speak, just gestures toward the sword rack. Real swords again. This time, there's no audience. Just you, him, and a rack of polished katana and wakizashi. The samurai's two-sword combo. The longer katana for battle, the shorter wakizashi for close combat. Or, well, let's not talk about what else it's for yet. That comes later. He picks one out and kneels, motioning for you to do the same. You follow, trying not to grunt or wobble. Caesar, the formal kneeling posture, is already torturing your legs. You wonder how long they stay like this daily. The answer is, long enough for your feet to forget they exist. He draws his sword an inch, slowly, and then slides it back with a click that sounds like thunder. Then he motions. Your turn. You reach for the katana and pause, remembering last time. This time you bow first. He nods. You draw. Slower. more focused. It's better. Still awkward, like trying to perform ballet with a crowbar, but better. You're shown the art of nukitsuke, the draw and strike technique, cutting as you unsheathe. It's supposed to be fluid, instinctual, graceful. Yours is jagged, hesitant, like you're pulling a sword out of molasses and hoping it doesn't bite you, but the instructor is patient, eerily so. He repeats the move again and again, never speaking, only demonstrating. You follow, slowly then quicker. Still wrong, but now it's less wrong. Sword etiquette is a world unto itself. You must never point your blade at another unless it's drawn in combat. You must clean it after every use, never set it flat on the ground, and perhaps most important, never draw it unless you're prepared to use it. This is not a pen, this is a promise. Historians still argue whether samurai truly abided by the no drawing without intent to kill ideal, or whether it was more symbolic than literal. But in this courtyard, with this man watching you like a hawk, it's definitely literal. He finally stands and beckons you to follow. He leads you to a wooden stand where a tatami mat roll stands soaked in water. Tamashigiri, test cutting. You're to strike through it in one clean slice. A test of blade alignment, strength, focus. You hold the sword like he showed you. Exhale, cut. It's a hit, but not clean. The mat tears sideways, the bottom half wobbling like it's confused. He frowns, then cuts it himself. Clean, precise, no drama. The top half spins in the air and lands silently. You bow. He bows back. That's your lesson. No words, just steel. Now here comes the fringe tidbit. Samurai would often perform katana keiki, placing their sword on a special stand when indoors, but the direction mattered. Blade up, edge inward if the room was peaceful, edge out if danger was present. Like the mood ring of feudal Japan, you're dismissed and returned to the edge of the courtyard, where the others are now practicing iaido, the meditative art of drawing and resheathing the sword in a continuous motion. Watching them is hypnotic. A sea of warriors kneeling, breathing, slicing through invisible threats, and sliding their blades back home in one liquid gesture. You try to follow along, mimicking the rhythm, but then your foot cramps, your balance shifts, and your sword clinks too loudly as it slides into the scabbard. Everyone hears. Everyone feels it. Your cheeks burn. Later, you're shown how to sit with the katana beside you, how to walk through a door with it, how to place it during meals. It's exhausting. Even sitting carries expectations. Your back must be straight, your gaze downward, but alert. You're learning that the sword isn't just something you use, it's something you live with, like a roommate who can kill you. And it's not just the katana. The wakizashi, the shorter sword, is always at your side indoors. It never leaves you. It's the weapon you sleep beside, bathe beside, and, if it comes to it, die beside. But more on that cheerful thought later. By mid-afternoon, your arms are trembling from repetition. You've drawn, sliced, and resheathed the blade so many times, your muscles are humming with dull pain. But you're starting to feel something beneath the exhaustion, a strange rhythm, a kind of presence, like your body is learning even as your mind falls behind. But then, of course, you ruin it. During a demonstration, you draw a half second too early, just a twitch, a nervous tick. The lead instructor freezes. The entire group pauses. You just threatened your opponent before the formal start of the duel. That's not eagerness. That's disrespect. Potentially even a challenge to duel in earnest. You stammer an apology. No one answers. Afterward, a fellow trainee, a boy no older than you but clearly 10 lifetimes wiser, leans over and whispers, "Never unsheath faster than your soul." Okay, that's cool. You'll probably get it tattooed if you ever make it home. The day winds down, the katana is returned. You bow again, lower this time, hoping the instructors saw at least one redeeming moment. Probably not. You return to your quarters, arms limp, knees barely bending. You kneel beside your futon and glance at the sword stand in the corner. A new habit. You place the blade there yourself, edge up, handle leftward for right-hand draw, just in case. The room is quiet. You let out a long breath and sink onto your mat. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. and try not to insult a soul-bound sword in the process. Dawn is not a suggestion, it's a command. You wake not to birdsong or gentle sunlight, but to the clack of a bamboo rod striking the hallway beam outside your door. Once, twice. It echoes like a gong through your aching bones. You rise, slowly, because every part of your body is announcing its suffering from yesterday's sword practice. But there's no time to coddle your joints. You fold your bedding in silence, because leaving your futon unkempt would be another offence in a long list you're building like a rebellious samurai bingo card. Today is training. Again. Except now you've graduated from basic sword swings to the full symphony of martial drills. You're handed a bow staff, a long wooden rod taller than you, lightweight, deceptively harmless, until it's whistling past your ear at 50 miles an hour. The instructor is all business. He demonstrates forms with a smooth, practiced grace. Each spin, each pivot, each jab carries the weight of intention. You copy him, awkwardly, like someone trying to conduct an orchestra with wet spaghetti. He corrects you, again and again. Hand placement, foot spacing, timing. You're pretty sure you've never moved this much in your life, let alone with this many people watching. But this isn't just exercise, it's character work. The samurai believed martial training forged the spirit. You aren't just learning how to defend yourself, you're learning how to submit your will to the blade. And here's the twist. You don't get to decide when you're ready. Your sensei does, or maybe the sword itself. You train until your wrists ache, your back screams, and you're hallucinating the smell of burgers where there is clearly only sweat and miso. Someone laughs when your bow staff slips and bounces off your foot. You try to laugh too. It sounds more like a sob. And then it's time for ukemi, falling practice. Because learning to fall with dignity is part of surviving a fight. Or, as it applies to you, surviving a training partner with slightly too much enthusiasm. They teach you how to roll, how to absorb impact, how to land without snapping your neck like a twig. It's all about control. You do it wrong and smack your shoulder so hard that the pain hums like a tuning fork through your body. The instructor says nothing, just points again. Try it again. You do, over and over, until your bruises are forming their own democracy. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Samurai trained extensively in multiple martial disciplines, not just swordsmanship. Jujutsu, kyujutsu, archery, sojutsu, spearfighting, and even horsemanship were part of a warrior's arsenal. A true samurai was as deadly on horseback with a bow as he was face to face with a blade. You, meanwhile, can't stay upright during a somersault. After a break, more barley tea, still no caffeine, you're handed a wooden spear. Yari. It's heavier than it looks. Balanced. Intimidating. It's also the most common battlefield weapon of the time. Not every samurai ran around with a katana. Most of them spent their battles behind spears, using teamwork and formation over duels and drama. You try to mimic the instructors, but your hands are blistering, your stance is too wide, and your aim drifts like you're trying to fish for compliments instead of enemies. And then comes kiai, the battle cry. It's not a scream, it's not a roar, it's a focused burst of energy channeled through breath and voice. Think of it like shouting from your soul, not your lungs. Everyone belts theirs with thunderous confidence. Yours sounds like you stepped on a Lego. They all look at you. You try again, louder, more guttural. Something in you shifts. There's power behind it now. Someone nods. Tiny victories. Your quirky tidbit of the day. Some samurai were trained to fight in near silence, using silent kiai, breath-focused movements that release tension inward instead of outward. Especially useful during night ambushes or stealth missions. You can't even breathe quietly when you're thinking too hard. So maybe don't sign up for the stealth squad. By mid-afternoon, your training group has moved to kata, pre-arranged forms that simulate combat. You pair off with the same young warrior from earlier. He's faster than you, smarter, and half as tired. But he doesn't mock you. He just blocks each strike with fluid ease and gives you just enough resistance to learn, not break. But as you go through the forms, your body starts responding without thought. Muscle memory, or maybe just sheer desperation. There's a rhythm in it, a kind of dance. You're not good, but you're present, aware. That's progress. And then it happens. You're too slow. He feints. You flinch backward. Your foot slips. And down you go. Hard, flat, and with enough of a thud that even the instructor winces. There's silence. Your partner steps back, bows. You scramble up, bowing so fast and low you nearly smack your forehead into the dirt. The moment passes. The instructor moves on. You are somehow still in one piece. Barely. You finish the day with Mokuso. Meditative stillness. Everyone kneels, eyes closed, breathing in sync. After all the noise and sweat, the silence feels heavy, sacred. Your heart slows. Your mind, though sore and cluttered, begins to settle. Historians still argue whether daily meditation was universal among all samurai or reserved mostly for Zen-influenced schools. But in this moment, it's very real. And it's the only part of the day where you don't feel entirely like an imposter. You open your eyes, the sun is setting. Orange spills over the courtyard like paint. Someone offers you a nod. It's not pity, not mockery. Maybe, just maybe, you're earning a fraction of something here. But as you rise to leave, you forget to bow to the training ground. Again. You limp toward the dining hall, dragging the day's aches behind you like an invisible sandbag. Everything hurts. Your shoulders, your pride, even your eyelids. At this point, if someone sneezed too loudly in your direction, you'd collapse like a paper lantern in the rain. The scent of miso and grilled fish greets you before you even reach the doorway. A low table is already set. Steaming rice, bowls of soup, small plates of pickled vegetables, a few grilled sardines that look more like decorations than food. You kneel into your assigned spot, wrong side of the mat, naturally, and immediately feel your feet fall asleep. A retainer appears and sets down a small lacquered tray in front of you. Chopsticks rest perfectly parallel across the top of the rice bowl. You pause. They look innocent. They're not. This is a dinner minefield. You pick up the chopsticks. Already wrong. You didn't slide them toward you first with both hands. You just grabbed them. That's like walking into someone's house and rearranging their furniture. You glance around. Everyone else has already begun with synchronized grace, lifting bowls and sipping soup with the kind of quiet dignity you can't even manage during a Zoom call. You try to imitate them, but in the process you accidentally jab your chopsticks upright into your rice. Every head turns. You freeze. Oh no! In Japan, placing chopsticks upright in a bowl of rice is a funerary act. It symbolizes an offering to the dead. You just invited ghosts to dinner, possibly insulted the ancestors, definitely unsettled your table mates. The elder next to you breathes in sharply but says nothing. You lower your eyes, quietly rearranging the offending utensils, cheeks burning. Welcome to the art of eating under pressure. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Samurai meals were typically simple. Rice, miso, pickled vegetables, and small portions of fish or tofu. Extravagant feasting was rare, often reserved for celebrations or political theatre. Daily meals were about sustenance, discipline, and harmony, not indulgence. You try to focus. You lift your rice bowl, take a small bite, chew quietly. Too loudly and you're uncouth. Too softly and you might seem ungrateful. You sip the miso soup, carefully, silently, no slurping unless it's noodles. The soup burns your tongue. You manage not to yelp. Another win. Conversation is minimal. You try not to speak unless spoken to, but eventually a young samurai across from you leans in and asks where you trained. His tone isn't cruel, just curious. You stammer something vague, something about travelling a long way, which is true technically. He raises an eyebrow. Far west? You nod. Very far? He smirks. You're not fooling anyone. But here comes your quirky tidbit. Chopsticks were sometimes made of precious materials like jade, ivory or gold for elite samurai families, and they weren't just for eating. Some were carved with charms, inscriptions, or even tiny compartments. Functional bling, Feudal Japan edition. You finally make it through the meal without further supernatural offences, or so you think, until dessert arrives. Which isn't really dessert. It's a cube of what looks like jelly made from sweet red beans, yoken. You pick it up with your chopsticks. It immediately slips. You catch it, sort of. It tumbles down the front of your kimono and lands with a gentle plop in your tea. Nobody says anything. Someone quietly offers you a napkin. You accept it with the solemnity of someone receiving their final warning. After dinner, the group remains kneeling as tea is served. Formal tea, the real deal, a tiny ceremony in miniature. The tea master pours with the grace of a calligrapher, whisking powdered green matcha until it froths like mossy water stirred by forest spirits. You accept the cup with both hands, bow slightly, sip. It's bitter, deeply bitter, like grass and regret had a baby. But you keep your face neutral. Everyone else is sipping like it's ambrosia. You nod. Delicious, you manage. It is not. As you sit there in silence, your back aching from a perfect posture, it hits you. This is not just food, it's philosophy. Every bite, every gesture is measured, intentional. Meals are an extension of the samurai code. Humble, disciplined, precise. Historians still argue whether Bushido influenced cuisine directly, or whether the austerity of samurai dining habits was just a byproduct of wartime economy. Either way, the connection is there. How you eat reveals who you are. You are a walking contradiction. After tea, you're expected to help clean, quietly, efficiently. No talking, no slouching, no clanking bowls together like it's a college dorm. You learn quickly that wiping a table is a spiritual act here. Wipe too fast and you're rushing. Too slow and you're lazy. Then it happens. You stack 2 bowls inside each other to carry them. The elder sees this. His eyes widen. Another unspoken rule. Never nest dishes. It implies someone won't be eating from that bowl again. Symbolically, you just told them they're done eating. Forever. You apologise. Again. You're starting to bow so often your spine is developing muscle memory. Finally, dishes cleared, the group disperses, but you're called aside. The cook, a sharp-eyed woman with a presence like a hawk and the voice of a sleepy breeze, wants a word. She doesn't scold you exactly, but she does offer one tight-lipped piece of advice. If the food gives you pause, pause longer. You nod, unsure what that even means. Probably something deep. Definitely something ominous. You return to your quarters, still tasting the bitterness of matcha and social shame. Your belly is full, but your confidence is paper thin. It's like dining with philosophy majors who can smell insecurity in your chopstick grip. Still, you survived. You made it through dinner without being disowned, cursed, or banished. Tomorrow you'll try to eat like a samurai. Today you merely dined like a ghost. You dream of tofu floating in green tea and a stern-looking chopstick pointing at your soul. When you wake, it's still dark out. The moon hangs above the courtyard like a watchful eye, and everything's drenched in a soft blue silence. For a brief moment, you forget where you are. Then your knee cracks as you sit up and reality returns. Oh, right. You're still in feudal Japan, still pretending you belong among warriors who treat silence like a language and self-discipline like oxygen. Today, you're told, is not about combat. It's about loyalty. You're led to a shaded part of the estate, where a shrine sits quietly beneath cedar trees. Lanterns flicker, paper streamers dance in the breeze, and a high-ranking samurai, a Hatamoto from the looks of his ornate robes and unreadable expression, stands waiting. He has the kind of aura that says, "I've never dropped a chopstick in my life." You kneel before him, joining a small group of fellow trainees. Today's lesson is not physical. It's ideological. You're about to swear fealty. The concept of giri, duty, obligation, the weight of honour owed, is introduced. It is not just an idea. It is law. Your lord is your lifeline. His survival is your purpose. His dishonour is your failure. It's all or nothing. There is no kinda loyal. You're instructed to write a simple vow on a narrow strip of paper. Your calligraphy is childlike. The ink runs. Your brushwork offends centuries, but the sentiment is clear. You're declaring service to the household, not symbolically, not for play. You hand it over. The Hatamoto takes it with 2 hands and the faintest of nods. That's it. No ceremony. Just a vow. Binding. Unbreakable. You've just walked into a contract you can't read, with rules you don't fully understand, and the penalty for breaching it? Death. Historians still argue whether samurai loyalty was as unwavering as romanticised, or if practical politics and shifting alliances meant loyalty was more flexible. The truth likely lies in the space between myth and memoir. But in your case, there's no wiggle room. You've pledged loyalty, and now you're being watched. Afterward, you join the others for a quiet walk through the estate. It feels casual, but it's not. You're being assessed. Every nod, every silence, every response to subtle social cues is a test of your discipline and deference. Then comes the test you didn't expect. A man bursts into the courtyard shouting. He's an outsider. Dirty kimono, wild eyes, accusing the Lord of dishonour. It's likely a staged event, a loyalty drill, but you don't know that. Your heart leaps. The other trainees shift subtly into position. One moves to intercept, another protects the path to the inner house. You freeze. The man's accusations grow louder. He kneels dramatically and slams his forehead to the ground. Hansei, a plea for repentance. You blink, unsure what to do. The Hatamoto says nothing. Then he turns and walks away. The man is dragged off, silently, swiftly, like the whole thing never happened. You've just witnessed the razor-thin boundary between honour and obliteration, and you failed to act. Later, a mentor pulls you aside. He doesn't scold you. He simply says, "Loyalty is not thought. It is motion." You repeat it under your breath, hoping it means something later. Now for your quirky tidbit. Samurai often carried inro, tiny tiered cases worn at the waist, holding medicine, seals or small trinkets. But in some domains, these cases also held letters of loyalty. Tokens of fealty, reminders of one's place and promises. Loyalty wasn't just spoken, it was worn. You return to your quarters, shaken. The scroll you signed earlier now sits on your shelf, just a strip of inked paper, and yet it feels like a collar. You begin to understand the stakes. The samurai didn't fear death so much as dishonour. Loyalty wasn't romantic, it was survival. Lose face, and you lose everything. And if your master falls, you follow, literally. The concept of yunshi, following your lord into death, creeps into your mind. In some eras, samurai were expected to commit suicide upon their master's demise, voluntarily, eagerly. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was, but the examples are chillingly real. Would you? Could you? You don't have time to answer that question, because now you're summoned again to bear witness. You're taken to a small room where a man kneels, calm, composed, surrounded by incense. A kaishakunin stands beside him. A second, a friend. This is a reenactment, you're told, a demonstration, but it feels real. The man adjusts his robe, exposing his abdomen. The blade lies before him. The second raises his sword slowly. You look away. You try to look away. This is seppuku, ritual suicide, not a punishment, an act of honour, the final performance of loyalty, reserved for samurai who must cleanse disgrace or follow a fallen lord. The man breathes in. The second steps forward. It stops before it begins. The second lowers the sword. The instructor nods. Lesson over. You're dismissed. You walk away hollow. The image stays. That night your dreams are quiet. Not peaceful. Just quiet. Like the air before a storm. You lie awake for hours staring at the ceiling. The scent of incense still lingering in your nose. You wonder, do you really understand loyalty? Or just fear? You shift beneath your blanket. Heart heavy. Breath slow. In a world where a misstep could mean shame, and shame could mean death. The samurai code is no bedtime story. It's a blade hovering in the air. Morning arrives like an ambush. Swift, cold, and without pity. Your legs are sore, your arms feel like they've been borrowed from a mannequin, and your dreams were full of unread scrolls and silent judgment. You rise anyway. You've learned by now that rest is a luxury, so is privacy, and comfort, and not having your soul constantly evaluated by strangers in robes. Today, something is different. The energy in the compound has shifted. The hallways are quieter than usual. Faces are serious. Not the usual quiet serious, but the someone said the wrong thing to the wrong person. Kind of serious. You follow your mentor through the garden, shoes crunching over gravel that suddenly feels a little sharper than it did yesterday. You're led to the edge of the estate toward the outer house. There, you see it. A row of men kneeling under a watchful guard. Their clothes are clean, their faces calm. but something is undeniably wrong. Suspected disloyalty, your mentor whispers, like it's the name of a plague. The words drop into your gut like a stone. You want to ask what they did. You don't. You've learned that questions can be just as dangerous as confessions here. Instead, you stand silently while an elder samurai reads from a scroll. You don't understand every word, but the tone is unmistakable. Formal judgment. No shouting, no defence, just pronouncement. The accused bow low, no one resists. One is taken away. Not roughly, just removed. Like a broken tile being replaced. Welcome to the samurai version of office politics. But instead of passive-aggressive emails and cold shoulders, it ends in ritual punishment and life-altering disgrace. Historians still argue whether samurai politics were as cutthroat as modern interpretations suggest. Some say much was exaggerated over time. Others insist the stakes were even higher behind closed doors. What's certain is this. Whispers here are weapons. And you're already in over your head. Later, your group is gathered in a shaded courtyard. Each person asked to deliver a kojo, a short formal report about something observed or learned. You stumble through yours. It's vague, safe, you think. But someone else makes a subtle accusation. They mention the chopstick mistake from dinner 2 nights ago, casually, like a footnote. The elder nods. You want to disappear. This is how it begins. Tiny things. A badly timed bow, a misplaced utensil, a glance that lingered too long. In a world where reigi, ritual decorum, is as important as skill with a blade, your every move is ammunition. The walls don't have ears, but the people do, and they remember everything. You begin to notice it more now, how others position themselves when the Lord's name is mentioned, how they phrase their praise of the instructors, how they compliment one another without sounding sycophantic, but still enough to survive. There's a technique to it all, a way of staying visible, but not vulnerable. You're bad at it. And now, the attention has shifted slightly in your direction. One morning, you wake to find your sword missing from its rack. Panic spikes. You didn't misplace it. You never would. Not after all you've learned. You look everywhere. Nothing. Then a young retainer appears, eyes downcast, and hands it to you without a word. Message received. It was a warning. Someone thinks you're not being careful. Maybe they're right. Maybe you said too much, or not enough. Maybe your silence is suspicious. Maybe your accent finally cracked the illusion of belonging. You feel the paranoia blooming around you like mould in a hidden room. Here's your quirky tidbit of the day. Some samurai use secret codes written in invisible ink made from rice water or crushed flower petals. Notes that only appeared when heated. Entire webs of silent communication operated within certain clans, especially during succession disputes. Nothing, it seems, was ever just what it appeared. At dinner that night you sit straighter. You chew slower. You wait before speaking. You mirror the bow of the man next to you with the precision of a shadow. It works, sort of. Someone offers you a refill of tea, a small courtesy. You don't know if it's genuine kindness or a way of saying, you're being watched, but not burned, yet. You sip and nod. The game continues. Later, a mentor offers you advice, half in jest, half in warning. Speak only when silence would be worse. You etch that into your memory. The next day, someone is gone. You don't ask why. That night, the moon hangs lower. The crickets chirp, soft and constant, like a code you can't quite crack. You kneel beside your futon, blade once again in its proper place, and try to still your mind. You think about how many steps you took that day, how many bows, how many words you didn't say. Politics here aren't a matter of ambition, they're a matter of existence. You don't climb a ladder, you avoid being shoved off one you didn't know you were standing on. And the code? The sacred, unbending samurai code, it doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care that you're tired or trying. It only cares that you show perfect loyalty and perfect etiquette. Even when your gut says run, you lie down, eyes open, and wonder if tomorrow you'll still be safe. Sleep doesn't come easily. When it finally does, it's the kind of sleep where you're not quite sure if you're resting or simply paused, eyes closed, mind still wound tight. When you wake, it's to the sound of wind in the bamboo, like someone whispering secrets in a language you almost understand. Today, they say, is for reflection, meditation, inner discipline. You breathe a tiny sigh of relief, thinking maybe this day won't involve bruises or political booby traps. You're wrong, of course. Just because your body gets a break doesn't mean your mind will. You're taken to a Zen hall, a simple wooden structure open to the air, filled with mats and incense and silence so deep it presses on your chest. You're instructed to kneel, back straight, hands in a loose circle, thumbs lightly touching, eyes cast downward, but not closed. The Zen master walks slowly down the row, staff in hand, sandals barely whispering against the floor. He's old, wrinkled, radiating patience and the kind of clarity that probably sees straight through your soul and into the part of you that once cried during a dentist appointment. You're supposed to empty your mind, focus on breath, on stillness, on nothing. But you, my friend, are a modern creature. Your brain is loud. The moment you try to think of nothing, your thoughts pile up like commuters at rush hour. Am I breathing too loudly? Is this dust on my robe? Do I look meditative enough? What if I accidentally achieve enlightenment and it resets the simulation? The Zen master stops beside you, says nothing. You freeze. Then, whack! A light tap with the kisaku, the flat stick of encouragement. Not punishment, not pain, just a redirection. It's meant to shake you awake, not in the wake up and start your day sense, in the wake up and stop pretending you understand this life kind of sense. You return to your breath, let it go, let it come, just be. This is harder than swordplay. Historians still argue whether Zazen was central to all the samurai, or mostly prominent in Zen-influenced regions like the Kamakura or Muromachi periods. But for those who practiced it, meditation wasn't relaxation, it was warfare, turned inward. Hours pass. You think it's been an hour. It's been 15 minutes. Eventually you're released from stillness. Your legs are numb. Your mind is full of something? Peace? Clarity? A pressing desire for lunch? You step outside, blinking in the daylight. Now comes tea again. But not like before. Today's tea is the chaji, the full tea ceremony. A slow, meticulous ritual where even the tiniest motion holds meaning. You remove your sandals, bow at the door, step into a tatami-lined room where every item has been chosen with reverence. Even the kettle hums with a kind of spiritual purpose. The tea master greets you with silence. Everything here is choreographed. You bow, sit. Accept the tea bowl with both hands, turn it, sip, rotate it back, bow again. It's like sipping from a poem, your quirky tidbit of the day. Tea masters often trained in kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, not hiding flaws but highlighting them, a philosophy baked into the samurai psyche, beauty in imperfection, strength in visible scars. You look down at your tea bowl wondering what kind of gold would be needed to mend your cracks. Later, you're taken on a spirit walk through a cedar forest. The path winds between moss-covered stones, tiny shrines, and scattered paper prayers tied to tree limbs. You're told to walk alone, to listen, to reflect on the code. Not just its rules, but its soul. You remember now, the code isn't just about action. It's about intention, restraint, the space between violence and virtue. A samurai doesn't kill because they want to. They kill because the code demands it, and only if there's no other path. You pause beside a Jizo statue, guardian of travellers and lost souls. Someone's left an offering, a plum, slightly wrinkled, still fragrant. You think of the man from the seppuku demonstration. You think of the accused men taken from the courtyard. You think of yourself. The path winds on, and with it, your thoughts, loyalty, honour, discipline, silence. These aren't just virtues here. They're weapons, shields, sometimes cages. You hear a rustle in the brush. A deer, a fox, or perhaps, as some believe, a yurei, a restless ghost drawn to places of spiritual conflict. You keep walking. At sunset you return to the estate, where candles are being lit. Lanterns glow softly. The compound feels gentler now, like even it exhales at dusk. You're invited to write a poem. No instructions, no theme, just write. You hesitate. Then, slowly, ink your clumsy syllables onto rice paper. Blade sleeps in its sheath. Breath caught between moon and cloud. I bow to silence. It's not good, but it's honest. The elder who reads it nods once. You think, hope, that means something. You kneel in your room that night, blade resting beside you, not as a threat, but as a companion. You bow to it, not out of fear, but respect. And for the first time, you feel something that isn't panic, not comfort, but alignment. You rise with the light. No rod against the beam, no voice calling, just the soft glow of dawn bleeding through the rice paper walls, and a strange, steady silence in your chest. It's the final day. You feel it, even if no one says it. There's a kind of hush across the compound, not from fear, but from gravity, as if the air itself knows something important is coming. A lesson, a reckoning, maybe both. You dress yourself in clean robes left folded at your door. Deep indigo, simple stitching. Not ceremonial, but close. When you tie your sash, your hands don't shake. Not like before. Maybe because they've done this now. Maybe because they know there's no point in trembling. You're summoned to the inner hall where the most senior samurai in the household stands waiting beneath the estate's emblem. A golden crane, wings spread across lacquered black. He says little. Only this. Today, you represent what you have learned. And that's terrifying. You're led through the garden, gravel freshly raked, stones arranged in deliberate silence, to a small courtyard walled off from the others. There is no audience, no ceremony, just a man waiting with two swords. Your test is not against him, thankfully. You'll face someone closer to your rank, someone who trained beside you. Still, the swords are real. You're handed a blunted katana, its edge dulled but still heavy, still alive in your hands. This isn't about injury. It's about intention, form, readiness, all of which you hope you've somehow developed in the span of, what, a week, a lifetime. Your opponent steps forward, the same quiet warrior from earlier, the one who corrected your stance without mocking you. He bows, you bow lower. The spar begins with a breath, then motion. Your first few strikes are clumsy, but you recover, block, parry, breathe. He pushes you, tests your angles, your resolve, not to defeat you, to see you, what you've learned, who you are beneath the robes and sweat and hesitation. You make one clean hit to his shoulder. He nods. You miss the next. Your final strike is a feint. He falls for it, barely. You don't capitalize on it, you pause, show restraint your instructor sees. That's the real test. The spar ends. You bow. Harder than ever before. Your opponent does the same. You feel not victorious, but valid. Then comes your final task. You're handed a letter, thin parchment, neatly folded. You're to deliver it, alone, to the local shrine. A ritual of service, they say. But when you step beyond the estate's gate for the first time in days, the journey feels different. Like walking out of a cave after forgetting what the sun looked like. You pass villagers, farmers, a woman sweeping her porch. They look at you, not with awe, not even curiosity, just recognition, as if the robes you wear now give you shape. It's not about being feared, it's about being known. At the shrine, you place the letter into a wooden box, bow to the altar, and feel the quiet all over again. Not the silence of discomfort, the silence of presence. You walk back slower. You pass the plum tree where you first saw a training sword split in two. You nod to it. The courtyard is empty when you return. The blade is taken from you, the robe too. You're handed your old garments, folded and clean, like an echo of the person you were before. But something has changed. You haven't mastered the code, not even close, but you've felt its edges, its teeth, its elegance, its burden. You're not a samurai. You never were. But for a moment you were allowed to stand among them, and that somehow feels enough. Your mentor walks you back to your room, says only one thing. You bowed well today. You try not to smile. Later you kneel once more in the candlelight. The sword is gone, but its absence feels heavier than its weight. Outside, the bamboo stirs. You breathe in and bow, not because you must, but because you understand. The garden glows silver under a waxing moon. Cicadas hum softly in the trees, and the paper lanterns sway like sleepy fireflies in their wooden cages. Somewhere in the distance, water trickles over stone, a steady rhythm older than speech. You've come far tonight, from awkward bows and botched sword drills to a brush with loyalty so sharp it left no wound, but changed you anyway. It's a heavy thing, the samurai code, not just a list of rules, but a way of being, of breathing. And though you didn't survive it, not really, you did walk its path. You felt its weight, its calm, its fury. You saw how silence can speak louder than steel, and how honour is carved not just in battle, but in moments of stillness, discipline and restraint. Let that settle in you now. Feel the quiet sink into your chest, slow and deep like a forest pond. Your thoughts soften, your muscles release, the sword sleeps, and so should you. You did well, traveller. You bowed well today. So rest. Let your breath grow longer. Let your mind step gently out of the dojo, out of the past and back into this moment, where blankets are soft and no one is judging your chopstick technique. Tomorrow will come, but tonight, just drift. Sleep safely, sleep deeply, sleep honourably.